So my aunt gave The Wild Robot, the book, to my son Nevin for his 7th birthday this past December. My husband and I would take turns reading it to him before bed, and we found ourselves fighting over who got to put him to bed so that we could keep reading this book. We would go downstairs after bedtime to the other one asking, "What happened next?" That doesn't usually happen. Like the robot book that I discussed 2 weeks ago, this one is so sweet. I simply cannot handle books with much drama or pain these days. And while there is some of that in this book, it is, as Amanda said, lovely. Jeez and creasem, it is overwhelmingly lovely. There's not a single human on the island, only very passing references to them, and I gotta say that's kind of refreshing. There's a lot of humans doing human stuff in the world right now, and it's kind of nice to escape that. Like last time, I will share with you the lessons that I learned from this beautiful robot book, mostly about humanity itself. So there's 3 lessons. The first lesson is that acting can be a useful strategy. Early in the book, as Roz is observing the animals, she notices a possum do something strange. It is attacked by a badger and it plays dead, including rolling over, sticking out its tongue, and emitting a stench of rotting corpse. Then eventually, long after the badger has left it alone, it rolls back onto its feet and is once more alive. "What you just did was unbelievable," said Roz. "I could not look away." "Unbelievable, really?" The creature's voice seemed to be softening. "I thought perhaps I overdid it when I stuck out my tongue." "I was certain you were dead." "Oh, what a lovely thing to say." Were you dead?" "Well, of course not. Nobody can actually come back from the dead. I was just an act." "I do not understand." "It's simple. I knew that if I played dead and really laid it on thick, that old badger would be so disgusted that he'd run off, and that's exactly what happened. We opossums are natural performers, you know. Death scenes are my specialty. But I have a wide dramatic range, believe me." "I believe you," said Roz. "But why do you pretend to be something you are not?" "Because it's fun," said the opossum. "And because it helps me survive, as you just saw. You never know, it might help you survive too." Roz's computer brain was humming with activity. Performing could be a survival strategy. If the opossum could pretend to be dead, the robot could pretend to be alive. She could act less robotic and more natural. If she could pretend to be friendly, she might make some friends, and they might help her live longer and better. Yes, this was an excellent plan. Roz proceeds to try on various friendly voices at different levels of politeness to try to win over the animals so they aren't afraid of her. It works, a little. I know there are many times in my life that I have had to, as they say, fake it till you make it. And I have found it to be a useful strategy. I don't advocate being someone that you're not. Not all the time, that would be destructive. But sometimes, in certain scenarios, and when I'm just not feeling it, it helps to act. And then sometimes I can sort of act my way into being whatever it is that I need to be. Sometimes I need to just act kinder than I'm feeling, or more compassionate, or more confident. Roz learns this strategy too. A little later on, after the gosling hatches and imprints on Roz and calls her repeatedly, "Mama," she brings him to a goose to try to find someone to take care of him. "I have tried to tell him that I am not his mother," said the robot, "but he does not understand." "Well," said the goose, "you'll have to act like his mother if you want him to survive." There was that word again, act. Very slowly, the robot was learning to act friendly. Maybe she could learn to act motherly as well. "You do want him to survive, don't you?" said the goose. "Yes, I do want him to survive," said the robot, "but I do not know how to act like a mother." "Oh, it's nothing. You just have to provide the gosling with food and water and shelter, make him feel loved, but don't pamper him too much. Keep him away from danger. Make sure he learns to walk and talk and swim and fly and get along with others and look after himself. That's all there is to mothering. The robot just stared. Mama, food, said the gosling. Now would probably be a good time to feed your son. When we adopted our son, he was 5 days old and spent a little time in the NICU. We had spent our first day with him and then returned home for the evening so that we could rest and take care of things at home, since we had no warning that we would be getting a baby that day. That evening, some friends were visiting us, and I found myself just aching to know how Nevin was doing in the NICU. So I called the nurse line, and the nurse answered. Hello, I said. I'm calling about Nevin. This is Christina Leone-Tracy. I found myself unsure of what to call myself. As I stuttered, the nurse sweetly and gently filled in the blank for me. Mother, you're his mother. My eyes still well up with tears thinking about her kindness. I was learning to act like his mother in that moment. And the next day, when a security snafu meant that they weren't going to let us go with him to his new room, you bet I became his mother. But yeah, there was some acting first. But then quicker than I would have imagined, I became his mother, just like Roz became Bright Bill's. The second lesson in this book that I want to share with you is purpose. Maybe, maybe not. During the latter half of the book, while Roz is helping the animals survive the harsh winter while the geese have migrated south, one scene takes place in one of the huts that she has created to keep the animals warm. They're discussing various topics, and then, quote, it was Swooper the Owl's turn to lecture the lodgers. Everything has a purpose. The sun is meant to give light. Plants are meant to grow. We owls are meant to hunt. We mice are meant to hide. We raccoons are meant to scavenge. Roz, what are you meant to do? I do not believe I have a purpose. Ha! I respectfully disagree, said Swooper. Clearly you are meant to build. I think Roz is meant to grow gardens. Roz is definitely meant to care for Bright Bill. Perhaps I'm simply meant to help others. Roz and the animals are contemplating one of humanity's biggest questions. This is the question that philosophy and religion have tried to answer for centuries. What is my purpose? Why am I here? We heard this same question 2 weeks ago when I discussed the Psalm for the Wild Built, the other robot book, the question that Dex, the human monk, is agonizing over, and Moscap, the robot, has no concern about. In this book, Roz is not as neutral as Moscap. She does seem to wonder what her purpose is, but she comes up with a relatively simple answer. Maybe it's just to help others. I wonder if our answer could be so simple. Toward the end of the book, when the Rico robots come to collect Roz, they tell her, we will return you to the factory where the makers will refurbish you and sell you to a work site. Now come with us. But I live here, said Roz. That is incorrect. Rosum, Unit 7134, any further resistance will be proof of defectiveness and we will deactivate you. But Roz had more questions. Who are the makers? What is my purpose? Why can I not ask questions? Here we see Roz asking more questions. Her frustration with not knowing where she came from, what her purpose is tangible and almost human. In the second book in this series, Roz does eventually meet her maker, the inventor and programmer of the Rosum robots. Both Roz and the maker are stumped at Roz's uniqueness, and they wonder if it's a glitch in her program, or perhaps the wild circumstances into which she lived her first year. Nature or nurture? That's always the question, even apparently with fictional robots. But it doesn't really matter, does it? When people ask the challenging questions of purpose or reason, as a minister, I often have to shrug. Other religions try to give the answer, but we as Unitarian Universalists don't have those answers. I don't know. I don't believe that we are given a certain purpose. I don't believe that certain events have some designated meaning. We don't find our purpose or find the reason for things, but I do believe that we can make our purpose and make meaning from the events in our lives. That capacity to create purpose and meaning, often from chaos, is deeply human. And it seems Roz-like as well. Number 3, our final lesson is about chosen family, which is why we chose the song we did. Beautiful job. It's about the power of created community. After the harsh winter and the return of the goose flock, Roz plans a party with a bonfire. She invites all the animals of the island. She speaks to them all as they gather. "Thank you all for being here," she said. "1 year ago, I awoke on the shore of this island. I was just a machine. I functioned. But you, my friends and family, you have taught me how to live, and so I thank you." "No, thank you, Roz," shouted a voice. "You have also taught me to be wild," said the robot. "So let us all celebrate life and wildness together." This book is 90% about community. It's about how we create community and how we create family. Chosen community, chosen family, not necessarily the ones that we are born into. Humans need each other. And Roz certainly needs her animal community too. And we can come together in all sorts of beautiful configurations that get those needs met. As I think about Roz's realization of who she is because of who her community is, I think about a historical Unitarian minister like one does. Maybe it's only me, I don't know. Paraphrasing from the Christian Bible, the 20th century Unitarian minister James Luther Adams said, "By their groups you shall know them. By their groups you shall know them." He was speaking about voluntary association, or supportive groups and communities which we choose to belong to. Roz was a wild robot because her community was wild. I am you because we are you. Earlier in the book, when Bright Bill is still young, he's asking, as young ones do, a million questions of Roz, who is patiently trying to answer them. It was impossible for such a young goose to understand technical things like computer brains and batteries and machines. The gosling was much better at understanding natural things like islands and forests and parents. Parents. The word suddenly left Bright Bill feeling uneasy. "You're not my real mother, are you?" "There are many kinds of mothers," said the robot. "Some mothers spend their whole lives caring for their young. Some lay eggs and immediately leave them behind. Some care for the offspring of other mothers. I have tried to act like your mother, but no, I am not your birth mother." "Do you know what happened to my birth mother?" Roz told Bright Bill about the fateful day in spring, about how the rocks had fallen and how only one egg had survived, and how she had put that egg in a nest and carried it away, and how she'd watched over the egg until it hatched. Bright Bill listened carefully until she finished. "Should I stop calling you Mama?" said the gosling. "I will still act like your mother, no matter what you call me," said the robot. "I think I'll keep calling you Mama. I think I'll keep calling you son." "We're a strange family," said Bright Bill with a little smile, "but I kind of like it that way." "Me too," said Roz. All right, so side note here about the illustrations in this book. It's a chapter book, so there's not illustrations on every page, but roughly once every chapter there's a beautiful illustration. Peter Brown is both the author and the illustrator, and he is a genius. They are simple, and you're not quite sure why they're funny, but they are, and they are so sweet. And as a mother by adoption, I resonate with Bright Bill's assessment that we are a strange family, but I kind of like it that way. Reading this book to my son, my eyes would fill with tears, like happy tears. I'm like, oh. And he would, on cue, roll his eyes at me. Mom. But the truth of this book, and its honesty and care that dealt with both the pain and confusion and love inherent in all families, and particularly foster and adoptive families, is heart-wrenchingly accurate. So as I end today, I want to say I had about 3 pages more of this sermon, but I am going to cut it short in the interest of time. This beautiful book has such nuance with which it treats community and care and listening to others' stories in order to understand them. May we as a community remember to care for each other with love and acknowledgement of our wholeness and our full purpose, even and until we can find those things for ourselves. Amen.